Welcome to the Field and Garden Podcast, a part of the Gardener's Workshop Network. I am Lisa Mason Ziegler, your host, veteran flower farmer for over 2.5 decades, founder of the Gardener's Workshop.com, author, teacher, and basically, friends, lover of all things cut flowers and business, right? Glad you're here. If you're new, welcome. Consider this my personal invitation to just be a part of all that we have to offer. And so, hey friends, did you know that we have a live show phone app? It's where we go live weekly, sharing what's happening on my flower farm. It includes demonstrations of what I use to grow all these beautiful flowers, and we show the flower harvest in real time. The phone app is free, and to get it, go to your phone's app store and simply search Gardener's Workshop and download the Shop app and join in on the fun. You're going to learn how I start seeds, what I grow, how I maintain the garden, and the essentials of harvesting. Plus, friends, you have the option to shop at the same time. I kind of think of it as a learn and shop opportunity. And plus, on the Friday noon show, I do a great giveaway each week to one lucky live viewer. Visit your phone's app store, search Gardener's Workshop, and then select the Shop app, because we have two apps. Download it. It doesn't take but a few seconds, and join in on the fun on the next live show or watch the replays. If you're already one of the thousands of viewers, please consider posting a review in the App Store about your experience using the app. It helps us as well as lets other folks know that it's okay to download it. So friends, today I want to talk about something that I wished I had heard 25 years ago. And it's about that business is all about the money and how it is spent. And for flower farmers, it can make or break your business. And when I say flower farmers, I guess what I mean is just really small businesses, which are typically folks that don't have any business training, right? We come into this through a back door. And so I'll talk about that a little bit on here, but I hope that what we're going to talk about today is just going to be a light switch moment for you, because business really is all about the money and how it is spent. And I'm not referring to the accumulation of personal money, or that the money is the driving force or the goal or the reason for starting a business. But it's that the money definitely is what makes it possible to continue a business, right? I never got that in the beginning. The accumulation of money is for sure that tool that keeps the business alive. The money is the essential piece of a business that allows it to continue on and go on. And that's why the money part just has to be talked about. It has to be planned. And then we have to actually practice it, because when those things don't happen, the money just slips through our fingers. And to stay within those financial lines that we draw for our business is what I like to think of as the high road to success. The high road meaning the most direct and easiest route to succeed. I always have thoughts, I kind of connect steps to things that I automatically jump to, right? And I think of the high road in business is like wearing a seatbelt when you get in a car. It just stacks the odds for you to ensure for the best outcome for a safe ride, right? Hopefully you won't ever need the seatbelt, but when that need arises, boy, oh boy, are you grateful that you buckled up, right? That's how I see the high road. You just don't know how much you need it until that day actually comes, that you actually need a lot of the benefits of taking the high road. So another reason to take the money high road, besides stacking the deck of cards for your business instead of gambling against it, is frankly, most of us don't naturally or aren't born naturally with the fortitude to take the low road because, friends, the low road is much more difficult. So what does that low road look like? Literally, it is stumbling from pothole to pothole because of poor, often unplanned choices like, let's just stop and pause for a moment, impulsive purchases like plants and bulbs, or maybe it's jumping ahead and actually spending money on something that will in fact be beneficial to the business, but now is just not the time to make that jump yet because we can't pay for it now, or sustain the loss if it doesn't quite go as planned. And with those, I'm thinking about high investment things like perhaps high investment crops like a peony, which I believe peonies are so beneficial to flower farmers, but that may not be the best thing for you to do in the first year when you don't even know if you're going to continue on, or do you even have customers yet? Or think even bigger than that, and we see people doing it, investing in equipment or infrastructure that is beyond your means at this time, that you can't sustain them, or you can't sustain if it doesn't go the way you think you've planned. These low road moves lead to having to crawl out of more and more potholes. And then one day you're just too darn exhausted to crawl out again. You know, that's what wears us out, is making these decisions, right? So most of us quit pretty quickly under these types of circumstances. And a money example of this is spending, for instance, like all of the money that you have available in your business on the wrong things, and then having to turn around and scrape the money together to meet those monthly obligations. Or, and I'll tell you what happens, because I talk to these people, y'all, and I was actually this girl back in the beginning. The real kiss of death is for a small business like what we're talking about, is to purchase on credit, counting on the success of your business to pay the bill. And there are so many ways to get into that kind of trouble when you're on the low road, meaning making unplanned, untimely purchases, right? So the root of taking the high road is having the cash needed to cover monthly expenses. And I have heard and I had read about, because I was in the business world before I got into flower farming. And I did face this problem, but it was so in the weeds that I didn't understand how it actually happened and the function of it. And what I'm talking about is cash flow trouble. That's what a lot of what I'm actually, that's like probably the root of what I'm talking about here today. And it is in fact what kills most businesses. And it's one of those things you never truly understand until the day you face it down. In a nutshell, you run out of money while there are still bills and obligations to pay. And I've heard people talk about it and say, oh, do you have more month than you have money left? That means you still have 2 weeks of month left and your paycheck doesn't come until the first. That is it in a nutshell. So a turning point for me in business was learning that there is a reason for all of that, those troubles, having more month than there is money. And I'm the only one that can control and fix it. Or, and I want to say that that's kind of like you have to just bite the bullet and control it and fix it. Or I can sacrifice the business today, without getting a handle on controlled spending on these impulse buys. And it is so easy, y'all, because most of us got here as gardeners, right? And I mean, how many of us would go to the nursery and come home with a trunk full of plants that we hadn't planned on, we didn't have the money for, and that is perfectly fine when you're a gardener. It's all different today, y'all. It's all different today. And so I just want to point out 3 simple facts that I have kind of figured out that can really put you on that high road instead of unknowingly taking the low road. So the first one is to find the way to accumulate money in the business by following a flower farming business model of the lowest expense with the highest return. In other words, stay off the low road field trips, meaning, I'm telling you, how many times have people commented or posted on social, oh my gosh, XYZ has this incredible offer going on. So I just bought 4,000 tulips or 1,000 perennial liners that I hadn't planned on. I'm not sure where I'm going to put them. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. That is exactly what I'm talking about. In the beginning of your business, this may feel so restrictive, but friends, it's worth that pain now because this leads to the real fun after you succeed and push through this stage of business. It's that whole pain today for the gain of tomorrow, in the truest sense. And this can be applied in so many areas in life. This is like, saving your money in retirement as a person that's now turning 64 in a few weeks, or actually in a couple of weeks. And the reality of retirement and what you did or didn't save or plan for is becoming a reality. And I can't tell you how good it is when you have planned and how bad it is when you haven't planned. I have firsthand experience on both sides of that, in my personal self, my family, my friends, acquaintances. These are the things you start talking about as you are aging out, right? But that is the same basic concept in your business. You have to think of how are you going to make this business go the long road? And I can promise you, if you sit down and talk to people that have been flower farming for 10, 15, 20, 30, and 40 years, I can tell you that they learned this lesson. They either grew up knowing this lesson by parents that taught it to them. I did not have that opportunity. I didn't have business owner parents, and I was not brought up in a home that my mom didn't work. My dad had a basic job. There was never enough money. Money was always tight, I guess. We lived a wonderful life. We had everything we truly needed, but there wasn't extra money. And there was never discussion of saving money. So I had to learn this the hard way through business. So in the beginning, again, you may feel limited, but friends, the reward comes as you successfully draw a line in the sand and saying, today, this is the model that I'm choosing. Low investment, high return. And then we're going to talk about the next 2 steps that help to build your seatbelt for your business, right? So number 2 is really focusing on those high road steps. Make them part of your plan. Make them your goal. And to not get sidetracked, and let those low roads come in and take your money as it accumulates. And this is so much harder than it sounds, y'all. When you start to accumulate some money in your business checking account from doing this, it is so easy to just spend that money. But you need to populate those important goals before you do it, because it is so easy to buy way more plants, seeds, and bulbs than you have customers for. I'm going to tell a story here in a minute about a business person I heard talking. And when I heard that story, it's exactly the way I feel when I read posts or hear testimonials from people, flower farmers that I meet, that talk about their success or their failure story. It's like I can see now, looking back, the writing on the wall. And that is the writing on the wall, folks, is once you start accumulating a little bit of money in your checking account, don't rush to spend it on impulsive purchases, and stick with your guns. I'm just here to just say that over and over again, right? So number 3 is the high road steps that I have found to really make success a reality. The number 1 is, many of you may have already bypassed step number 1, but for those of you that are aspiring flower farmers, dreaming of a flower farm and haven't started yet, my first recommendation is to start that business with cold, hard cash. To not try to start on credit, to not borrow money, to have cash in hand to do it. And I believe that when you follow the model of low investment, high return, $3,000 can do it for pretty much anybody. So there's a lot of ways you can get that cold hard cash that I have spoken of from time to time, whether that is, if you don't have $3,000, you need to get a part-time hustle, side job, part-time job, or sell something to get the money before you go all in on your plan, right? Secondly is to plan what to spend it on to pave the high road. And I believe that business model is by growing annuals, low investment, y'all. You start from seed. You can do that on a bootstrap budget, to build and learn your business. And, Jenny Love and I have spoken, and Dave Dowling even, have spoken many times about how the growing the flower part is like 25% of a flower farming business. The rest of it is the business part, which is the money, the strategy, what you do and don't do, and selling the flowers. That is all so much a bigger part than what we think. So while you're figuring that all out without being crushed in bed every night, filling your mind and your heart with all these worries because you've spent thousands of dollars on, I don't want to pick on tulips again. Let's pick on ranunculus. Ranunculus is an amazing flower farmer crop. Once you're educated, have customers, and know a little bit about what you're doing. But to spend a lot of money on the bulbs or the corms to actually grow them before you know how to flower farm and before you have customers, that's the stuff that keeps you up all night, friends. That's what paves the road for the low road, right? It sounds so easy, but it's not, friends. I believe that growing and paving the high road is grounded in starting a flower farming business, growing annuals, low investment, high return, to build and learn the business. That's number 2. And if you're already in and you've already gotten yourself into a little bit of trouble, it's time to hit the reset button and get back to basics. Get down. And if you think there's no diversity in growing annuals, I could not disagree with you more, because I've been growing annuals for 27 years now. That's what I built my business on, and successfully. So that is how you can focus on the high road. Building and structuring your high road is to structure your business, low investment, high return. So, the third high road step, I guess, is to start with and continue to build those structure steps that are the seatbelt of your business. And a lot of people call it different things. Some people call it an emergency fund. I think it's called that really in a home personal situation. Other people might call it your backup fund. In the business world, they call it retained earnings. And retained earnings is your savings account. That's money you do not touch unless it's in the plan or it is truly an emergency. Let's just say that, I mean, some horrific thing happens. You're cooler. You are growing lots of bulbs, which are in peonies, those crops that are essential to have a cooler for so that you can sit on them, hold them, and keep them in place until you get them to the end customer, whether that's commercial or retail. You have to have them cold or they're going to blow open sitting in your warehouse or in your building, and your cooler croaks. And you don't have, the $5,000 for whatever the repair is. I'm just making this all up as I go, friends. And you need the cash to fix it because it's going to cost you a lot if you don't fix it. That's what an emergency fund is for. It is not for a sale on tulip bulbs, right? Are we getting the gist? So continually building your emergency backup fund, retained earnings fund never ends. So you need to have a set amount, so I'm going to just go down a little rabbit hole here. Let's just say you're just starting out and you've got that $3,000. You're saying, all right, here's my money that I'm going to start the business with. I would take $500 of that money and put it in a savings account. That's the root money. That's the seed money to grow your fund. And that other $2,500 is what you're going to spend to get literally seeds, the minimal seed starting equipment, compost, fertilizer, and irrigation, right? That's what's going to jumpstart your business. Put that money aside. And then every single month, you're going to put whatever percentage you decide you are going to set aside. Because I'm a believer in 5% to retained earnings. And if you just do that from the beginning, you just don't even miss it. That is true when people say that. When you learn to budget with what's left, you really do budget and you spend what you get, right? That's why it's so important to have a plan. And the other thing is that number could be higher for you if you're going to be paying other things out of retained earnings, whether you're giving, taxes, all of those other things, which I'm not going to get all caught up in talking about that. But when I'm talking about retained earnings, this is the money that you use to save your business when you need it. And in the future, once it gets kind of plump, that's the money you use to grow your business. That's the money that you purchase pieces of equipment that are not in your week-to-week budget or infrastructure, right? So those are the three steps to start your model off on a cash basis, and to accumulate money in the business as much as you can, and so that you can focus on the high road steps and just don't get sidetracked, y'all. Put on blinders. And then to follow those success steps to just pave the high road, starting with cash, to spend the money paving the high road once you get cash, to not quickly spend it on unplanned, frivolous, impulsive buys. And then to remember to continually build your retained earnings, because that's what gives you peace of mind and helps you to really sleep better at night, which is what makes us sustainable to go on for year after year. So these steps are really simple, but few of us know about them. And such a basic, simple structure. I know that I didn't. We get caught up in the weeds and side roads, and we quickly can just spiral into that failure and then not even really realizing and knowing why, right? And when we actually have created that whole can of worms ourselves, by the choices that we made. And friends, the business owner is the only one that has the option to decide where the money gets spent. Every time you spend a dollar, you're voting whether your business succeeds or fails. Think of it that way. That might actually help, right? And so I heard a great story recently from Eric Schmidt, who was a former CEO of Google. Like, right? Like do we even think of Google as a business, right? I mean, it's like it's just a part of our life, right? And so he was talking about how he knows immediately if a founder / business owner is genuinely a successful business leader. And he knows this, friends, by how they spend their money and their level of what he called frugalness. So he told of how when he joined Google, got hired, they already had raised like $25 million. So obviously there was money. There was bucks in the bank. But yet what he shared is when he came on, they put him in an office with 4 other engineers, packed him there like sardines. And then he gradually did get his own small office. I think he said it was like 8 by 10 or something. And literally his desk was an old door. He didn't get a fancy desk. And he was speaking of that when he walks into a startup business office, think of yourself. What would somebody think, a successful business owner think, if they walked onto your farm? That when he walks into a startup business office and sees nice offices with really nice chairs, he cringes because he thinks that those founders / business owners haven't figured out yet that it's not their money that they're spending, which that's not really applicable to us. But what he said is that the money should be spent on specifics like sustaining and growing the business, not wasted on non-bottom line affecting things, right? And it was just so clear to me when he was saying this, because I think so many of us come to this flower farming business as a gardener gone wild. I have referred to that throughout my career, that I was a gardener gone wild. I just couldn't control myself growing flowers. And it was like, okay, I love having a garden full of growing plants on the verge of blooming and then blooming. But if you just leave the flowers in the garden, it just becomes an old garden, right? Cutting them and selling them, or cutting them and having a place for them to go, constantly renews the garden. And that's what I absolutely love. And I had to find a way to sustain that. And I think that we as gardeners gone wild, most often, that's our background. That's how we come into this. We're not coming into this as a business trained mindset person like a Google CEO. And I just thought it would be so helpful. It would have been so helpful to me for somebody to say, here is the clear lines to start with. I'm not saying you're not going to go 1,000 different journeys after you get your foundation. Once you get your engine running and up and your tank full of gas and you have a way to refill your gas tank, you can go anywhere, friends. So I hope that this helps you as much as it has me. And I have to keep learning these lessons over and over and over again. And I love sharing them with you. And the little money decisions we make today will make or break the future of our small flower farming businesses. And that's it in a nutshell, friends. So folks, this podcast is made possible by thegardenersworkshop.com. And if the need arises that you need tools, seeds, supplies, or maybe a copy of my book we always have a bonus that comes with my books when you purchase them through us. It's either an additional PDF download, like with the Cut Flower Handbook. It has the book, The Flowers That Didn't Make the Book. My book, Vegetables Love Flowers, has a video book study really telling the backstory of the book. And then, of course, Cool Flowers, the book that started it all, also has a video book study that comes with it when you purchase from us. And we just appreciate that and would love to have you join our live show that happens inside our live show app, where you can, when you see something that would help you or you need, you can literally purchase it on the spot, friends. Just think QVC type show with Lisa and her team sharing what and how we do it, and you have the opportunity to purchase it. And friends, we just love helping you on your journey, whether you are selling flowers for profit or you're growing a garden in your backyard for pleasure. We love being here to help you with that. And friends, until we meet again, ciao.